Alright, for this one we need to get secant of theta by itself. So we're going to start by dividing both sides by negative 14. So up to the secant of theta is equal to, the 14s are going to cancel each other out, but we're still left with the negative. Right. So to figure this out, we need to remember that secant's reciprocal is cosine. And if you're not sure what the cosine value would have been to give you negative square root of 2, you can always take the reciprocal of that, so just flip it upside down, and get the radical out of the denominator. So you end up with the square root of 2 over 2 with it being negative. So instead of trying to memorize all of those secant values, I always just flip it, and hopefully you're good with your sine and cosine values. So really we're asking ourselves at what angles is cosine, or your x value, going to be negative square root of 2 over 2. So cosine, because that is x, is negative in the second quadrant and the third quadrant. Now you don't need to write that down, but I find that helpful to do. And the kind of angle where cosine is going to equal radical 2 over 2 is going to be your over 4 angles. So that gives us 3 pi over 4 in the second quadrant, and 5 pi over 4 in the third quadrant. Now, if the direction just said solve for 0 to 2 pi, we'd be done. But the directions don't say that. The directions say give us a general formula. So that's where we take it that one step further. You need to think about where 3 pi over 4 is, which is in the middle of the second quadrant, and where 5 pi over 4 is, which is in the middle of the third. So remember, your only options are to either add pi, which those angles are definitely not pi away from one another. They're 90 degrees or pi over 2 away from one another. Your other option is to add 2 pi. So because these are not pi away from one another, we'd have to go all the way around the circle to get another answer that goes along with 3 pi over 4. So we're going to have to add 2 pi to this, and we can do it as many times as we want, so that's where the k comes from. So 3 pi over 4 plus 2 pi k. And we can do the same thing for the 5 pi over 4. If we wanted to get more angles that end up down here, we would just have to add 2 pi to that original 5 pi over 4, and we could do it as many times as we want, so the k. So our final answer in the general form is going to be 3 pi over 4 plus 2 pi k and 5 pi over 4 plus 2 pi k.